الجراف ده اللي
We are
طالع.
talking tomorrow. Be careful, you all right? You're getting crushed.
You tell us where to go. Governor of Sudan, that every single one.
So George Coloni, of course, you're here in a mission. You started your mission with China, then Cairo. It's a humanitarian mission, as far as I understand. But why China and why Cairo, and what are you going to, what do you have in mind about Darfur here?
Well, the question is, we're really at a boiling point in Darfur and neighboring Chad. The humanitarian issues alone, we have about 2.5 million refugees who, as this gets worse, are in much, much more peril. And it became apparent to us that the simple policies that we're having, the process that we have to go through in the political stages of this, need also humanitarian effort along the way, because we need to speed up this process. These people are going to die. China was our first stop, because China does so much trade and has so much influence financially with the government of Sudan. And we felt that it was a smart thing to go to two countries that are friendly to the government of Sudan, rather than people who put them on terrorist watch lists and say they won't do trade, in order to go to them and say, what are the things that we can do? What are the things that they're willing to do? First and foremost, to protect to speed up the humanitarian effort. And secondly, to try and find a peace, help find a peace in this. We believe that the truth is, we're fairly sure that no one's going to be invading a sovereign nation anytime soon. So if that's not going to happen, then the best move, we believe, is to find diplomatic answers, and the best people do it, best suited. Who better than the center of all of the Arab countries and the leader of them for so long? That's why we came here in particular.
Yesterday you said that you are in a humanitarian mission, but it doesn't got anything to do with politics. How can you really separate politics from what's happening in Sudan and from humanitarian aid? It has taken a political, it wasn't a political conflict to begin with. It was an economic and social development, and now it has taken this political shape.
Right. It is. It's anytime you talk about these subjects, it's always going to have political underpinnings. But the simple truth is that these 2.5 million people don't stand on one side or the other of an issue. They don't really care who's right or wrong right now. They want to eat, and they want to not be killed or raped or die of disease. So to us, that separates it from politics right now. Now it is as simple as there are people out there that need our help that have nothing to do with the political process at all. And that seems to be where our focus is.
Ms. Tegla, you being Kenyan, an African woman, you have aid, you've helped lots of Sudanese women in the south before, and the same thing, or more or less the same now, is happening to women and children in Darfur. So what do you have in mind for those women and children in Darfur?
I think what I have in mind, that we need everybody to participate. This is a field whereby we need all the sides of the people. We need them. We need other people from outside Africa. As a woman, we are losing a lot. We lose our husbands, we lose our children. So how are we going to bring this into the scenes of the world? We need also people like who can take our messages from Africa. And I'm an athlete. I can be also ambassador outside, because I know what it means. And I come from Africa, and where the problem is in Africa.
You can feel it more.
I feel it more.
You're a woman, you're an African woman, you've had your troubles in your country as well with all other women.
Yeah, and one thing that last week when I got a message from Save Darfur, I was kind of like, maybe I'm really tired, I might not go. But I realized, listen, Tegla, this is the right time that you as a person, you have to start something in your house. My house is Africa. In Africa, Darfur is the house. And that's why I realized there is a challenge. And we, as leaders in Africa, women, men and politicians, we need and everybody to fight another problem that facing a human being. So it's a challenge for us.
Of course. Well, I mean, Mr. Coloni, you have different views from Chinese and Egyptian government and the Arab government. I know that you have differences, and you've met with officials. You've met with Mrs. Mubarak. You've met with the foreign minister. How did you come out with those meetings? Was the gap still as wide as it is, or it was lessened after those meetings? Did you have a better understanding of their position, or still you're in the same position now as you were?
Well, first, I think we have a much better understanding of their position, which is always important. I think that the secret to this is going to be what Don has been talking about all along, which was, and Joey and all of us, were the idea of having conversations, that the way to understand people is actually to talk to them. And so we had a great several meetings yesterday to hear opposing views and to hear reasons why these difficulties exist, not just the ones we hear on the, from the West. What we found fascinating also was how concerned the foreign minister, how concerned Ms. Mubarak is. We found a great commitment to finding ways to step up. We talked about her possibly leading a women's delegation or forum about talking about this, and possibly going to Chad to look at one of the camps and to try and.
You persuaded her to or she had that?
I think it was her idea as much as anyone's, but she was. It seemed that she is very committed now to bringing the attention to the idea that while all these other situations have to be solved, that there are a lot of people dying. And we found that with the foreign minister as well. There were great conversations about sending in, because he said we have the ability to put people in who are not at danger, humanitarians, and who won't be fired upon because they're Egyptian. That's unique to this situation. And he said that if we can get it funded, meaning they fund it, we help the funding, we do our part, that he can get some humanitarian effort in some of these camps as well. And that was a huge step, we thought, because it also sends a signal to the government of Sudan that every single one, from Beijing to Egypt, everyone said there is grave concern with what's going on, and that we are really at the tipping point. Everyone said that.
Mr. Gonchidel, of course, your Hotel Rwanda, you put on focus the genocide that happened between the Hutus and the Tutsis, and you've been to Darfur in 2005, January, in a fact-finding mission. Do you have any future plans of portraying what's happening in Darfur in a movie? Did it really inspire you the same way?
I would hope that before we were able to do any movie like Hotel Darfur or something similar, that it would be moot and we would be beyond that. And that's what we're here to do. Obviously, there are many stories that come from those camps and from those people and from the participants in this conflict. I think, however, what is probably more effective is to do things like what George did when he went with his father and David, and what I did when I was able to go and bring Nightline along, and continue to keep these stories in the forefront of people's thought, because as the world gets smaller and as this global community gets closer together, we see that this is in everyone's backyard. And I don't think that, I don't think that you would walk away from a fire in your backyard and shut the door and go on about your business. And as we see what comes out of regions like this, when people are disenfranchised and have nothing and feel powerless, one of the things they often turn to is a very demonstrative way to affect the world, which is blowing things up and killing people, because it gets the news. If it bleeds, it leads. And this is a way that people clamor for attention when they feel that no one's paying attention to them, or their plight is unrecognized. So I think the best way to stem that is to continue to pursue places where, and Darfur is a perfect example, where things are going out of balance and there are clearly huge inequities, and we have to address that.
Okay. Joey, you've participated in the rally in Washington back in April, and I think lots of things have happened since April till now, the resolutions of the United Nations. However, it was not really implemented yet, but how far did you see the change? Is there any, if there's any positive change? I mean, you've used all your fame, your power, to bring this cause to the forefront, in front of the Americans, in front of the world. Have you felt that any success has been made so far?
Well, of course it's been frustrating at times, because I spoke at a rally in Washington, and then 6 months later I spoke at a rally in New York, and you look around and you say, well, am I saying the same things to the same people, and has anything really changed? And so it's difficult, but I think the important thing to realize is that if you believe in something, and these people need a chance, they deserve the chance to have a life and to be able to live and grow up, and if you believe that, then it has to be something you're willing to fight for a long time. You have to be able to keep beating the drum and keep raising awareness. And I believe that there have been a few successes. I think that the resolution 1706, one of the reasons it came up was because of the press and the urgency that the people and citizens had for the crisis.
There's a reluctance, of course, to deploy. I mean, but this reluctance can be understood here in the Arab world, that it's lessening the sovereignty of the Sudanese government over. This is politics. This is when politics comes to tangle with the humanitarian aid.
And of course, they're so related. It's difficult to separate them, but it's not difficult to want to advocate for the rights of hundreds of thousands of women and children, because they're not soldiers. Women and children in this area, they're not the ones they're not killing people. They're being slaughtered, and I think that's clear, and it's urgent, and that's why we continue to travel, and we continue to speak, and we continue to try and involve people from all sides.
So did you come here with a set of suggestions to the governments, to the officials here or in China, or you just wanted to listen?
Well, it's an interesting thing. You know, we've found over doing this for a period of time that the trick is not to go in and tell people what they should do. What we found that the best policy for us is to come in and ask what it is we can do, and ask them where they see this situation going and what would be the best result. And if they see that, what are the steps that they can take? How can we help accelerate those steps? We have found that every place we've gone, they feel very much the same thing. The issues are both in China and here is, of course, not infringing on the sovereignty of the government of Sudan. We understand that. I spoke at the National Security Council, and the one thing that was clear was, although there are people that are asking for it, the idea of marching in an all-UN troop into a sovereign nation unaccepted by al-Bashir is not something that, first of all, you could really.
Do you plan to going to Sudan to talk to the Sudanese?
We'd like to. We've had that conversation as well. We've had not much luck getting in there right now, as you can imagine.
You're not welcome, do you mean?
We weren't before. We couldn't get a visa. We did try, but perhaps as time goes on here, we might be able to get in there and have that conversation. I think we would all welcome the opportunity to speak to all parties involved, because bottom line is we don't know how to fix this. There are a lot smarter people out there. There are a lot smarter people in this country, a lot smarter people in China. We just want to make sure that their voice is heard.
This area is full of chaos. It's not just Darfur, and you know that. Of course, the Palestinians have been living in camps for over 40 years. Do you intend to have a similar approach, humanitarian approach, towards the Palestinian who's living in such conditions?
Well, the problem is that we all understand. We're students of the world. We do understand that most of the issues that are coming up in general in the Middle East focus and circle around Palestine and Israel and that sort of problem. Ours is a single-minded issue. We can't try and encompass the whole world. The one thing we're trying to do is have a laser viewpoint of a very specific issue, a humanitarian issue for these people who are in dire need. And with that, if you can succeed in these small satellite moments, then perhaps that can spread into other places.
Probably because the complexity of the Palestinian issue you don't want to get in, or is it because you feel that the Darfurian...
I just don't think that, I think that it's an awfully, it's a problem that hasn't been solved by a lot of people over a long period of time. this is one we are not sure can't be solved, Darfur. We think it can be solved. The Palestinian one's a much bigger issue, and that needs a lot of very brave men and women to get in there and solve, and they should do it as soon as possible.
As we're running out of time, I just need to ask you the portrayal of the Arabs after 9/11, or even before 9/11, in Hollywood movies, being portrayed as terrorists. This is really very sensitive to the Arab world. I know that for sure. I mean, do you have any intention, both of you, to change that or to work against that, or it comes natural within the movie industry, you think?
Well, I think that Hollywood is not the place to necessarily look toward to see so often the greatest examples of how we depict, I don't know, not just Arabs. I mean, I know that blacks very often had the similar beef, and it's just recently started to turn around. So it's not necessarily the shining example of where we look toward for examples of to the world. And documentaries do that, I think, much better, show a much more even balance. And it really has to do with with commerce, and there's always been a depiction of a bad guy. And of course, that's an easy way to do it. But
this stereotyping of a bad guy being pointed to the Arabs and Muslims being the terrorists now, is this, I mean, Syriana, I know that Syriana is different.
Syriana, I did Three Kings too, which obviously we were talking about how difficult the time it was for the Shiites. That was what the film was about. I don't know that it happens all the time, but you can't look to Hollywood to always be responsible. Those are very easy things. They do what all people do, which is you capitalize off of fears, and they haven't always been very responsible. You're absolutely right. We do what we can to try to change that, because we work on films that we want to have discussing issues rather than making bad guys.
I have two more questions, if you can allow me. Well, actually, you're neither a Republican nor a Democrat, but I know, your father is a Democrat, or you have affiliation with the Democrats. You can
Sure,
allow
go ahead.
Well, actually, you're neither a Republican nor a Democrat. You are a Democrat. Do you have any intention of running for Congress, for presidency next?
No. There are some very good candidates out there this year, and coming up in 2008, that I have every intention of really throwing whatever way I'm fundraising or whatever I can behind. But I don't. I've done too many bad things in my life to be a candidate.
Politician, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
You have an opposing position towards the American war on Iraq.
I did before the war. I stood. I think Don did. I think many of us here had a lot. Our argument with the government was, of course, that we should ask more questions before we go into these situations. But now our problem is, as we go on, and it's sort of the same way as in Darfur, we're looking at this as if we walked in today and this was the hand you were given, how do we solve it from here? And I think that that's the only way we can move forward from here, rather than looking back and trying to point fingers and blame. We're trying to say, how can we move forward right now and save as many people's lives as we possibly can?
Well, this question is given to me by your female fans. They want to know for how long are you going to be a bachelor, and is there any Mrs. Coloni on the way?
I'm getting married today.
Really?
In Cairo. Mm-hmm.
Who's the lucky?
I can't. I'll find out soon.
Now, can you spoke some words in Arabic in your Syriana. Would you like to say something for Alarabia in Arabic for your viewers?
Just say shukran. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for being with us, and we'd love to have you here in a much longer visit, so you can watch the pyramids, you can see the real people of Egypt. What was your impression anyway?
It's a city. It looks like a car to me, because that's all we saw as we drove around.
And you?
The time was much, much too short. I want to spend weeks here and explore and see. And
I heard the fans were following you.
They were following Tegla.
No, I was running faster, so they were following you.
You are running too fast.
She could outrun us all.
Thank you all for being with us, and it was really a pleasure having you, and we'd love to have you here really soon.
Thank you.
Much longer visit, see the pyramids.
We would love to.
Probably you saw it from your balcony?
We did. We saw the step pyramid, the older one we saw.
Oh, it's a Cara.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you all. Thank you very much.